Presumably similar videos already exist. Here comes Rapid Fire Golf Concepts, getting right into the basics by defining club loft as the angle between the club face and perfectly flat ground. All golfers know that the lower the number is on the club, the lower the loft will be, and a lower loft means a lower ball flight. What I want you to keep in mind is that the launch angle is not the same as the club loft. But more on that later. When hitting uphill, the ball will launch higher. A 9-iron uphill may only go as far as a sand wedge on flat ground. On the flip side, hitting downhill makes the ball fly lower and farther. A small tip for those who struggle hitting from up or downhill slopes is to match your shoulder line to the slope. In addition to slopes affecting launch angle, we can tilt the shaft to increase or decrease loft. This is called dynamic loft. Tilting the shaft back adds loft, but risks thinning the shot, otherwise known as blading. It's often used in bunker or flop shots to make the ball launch higher. Tilting the shaft back also activates what is called the bounce of the club. Hitting the ground before hitting the ball slows the club down, which will result in lost distance, fat and thin shots, or uncontrollable misses due to a redirected club face. It's easier said than done, but striking the ball directly without hitting the ground ensures that any of that cannot happen. Tilting the shaft forward could aid when attempting to hit the ball before the ground. And this takes us to the first and probably most important key takeaway of all: strike the ball before the ground. The situation also depends on the lie of the ball. A good lie means nothing blocks the swing or ball's exit path. On fairways, you can always hit down for consistency, but rough complicates things. In the rough, really try to favor higher lofted clubs. Grass slows both the club and the ball down. Sometimes distance is less important than control, and often a higher lofted club will actually get you farther. Key takeaway 2, hit higher lofted clubs more often. Moving on to bounce. Bounce is the extra material under the club's sole. It prevents digging and will instead make the club slide and bounce off the ground. It's useful for avoiding going too far under the ball in soft turfs like the rough. It is harder to dig with a blunt object, which makes bounce especially helpful in sand. Bunker shots rely heavily on the club skimming and bouncing through the sand. More bounce is not always better. On firm sand or turf, bounce can actually make clean shots more difficult. In general, bounce is best on softer surfaces, whether sand or grass. Another factor is the direction of grass growth, known as grain. Hitting with the grain, that is grass growing toward the hole, can be considered quite safe, while against the grain, grass growing toward the tee box, makes shots riskier. When chipping against the grain, the club often gets caught in the grass. You can combat this by using the bounce to skip and slide over the grass. The leading edge could of course blade the ball a bit, but it often turns out great if you take a few practice strokes first. Key takeaway 3, use bounce to fight tricky chips against the grain. Even greens have grain. It can be subtle on shortcut grass, but it's there. Putting against the grain slows the ball and makes it break more. Also, remember that the ball breaks most near the hole, where it has slowed down. Let's briefly talk about golf balls. Even if they feel rock hard, they do actually deform on impact. Energy is stored as the ball is squished by the club, and that energy is then released as they spring back into shape. Harder balls deform less but rebound quicker, going farther if struck hard. Softer balls, on the other hand, creates more backspin, which sends them flying higher and makes them stop faster when they land. Multicore balls tries to combine both traits. Inner layers react to harder strikes off the tee, while softer outer layers give spin and control near the green. You should consider only using the same golf ball to get better consistency and predictability. At least be aware that distance and spin rate will otherwise vary every time you change the ball. When struck, the ball slides and rolls up the club face. The ball rolling up the face is what creates backspin. More compression increases contact with the grooves, which creates more friction, which creates more spin. Since harder strikes as well as softer balls compress the ball more, these are two facts which contribute to increased spin. Launch angle is not equal to club loft. Watch a slow motion video of someone striking an iron. You'll see the ball roll and slide up the face, launching higher than the loft itself. Another detail to take away from this is that reduced friction makes the ball slide more, as opposed to roll up the face. This is why drivers don't have any grooves. Something that lowers friction is water on the club or the ball. This lowers spin and makes the ball slide on the face, which could raise the launch angle. This means that the ball often goes shorter when wet. Moving on, drag, otherwise known as wind resistance, is what prevents the ball from flying indefinitely. Hitting into the wind increases drag because the ball travels through more air. So, more air equals more drag. And downwind has the opposite effect. When the ball travels with the wind, it stays alongside the same air for longer, which naturally makes it pass by less air. So drag is important to consider, but we all knew that. Then there's the Magnus effect, which might be less well known, but it is arguably more important. A backspinning ball moving through the air makes it easier for air to pass over the ball as opposed to underneath. This leads to lower pressure on top and higher pressure below, and this pressure difference creates lift similar to an airplane wing. More spin means more lift, but this lift can naturally make the club go shorter, much like hitting uphill. When hitting into the wind, this air pressure effect is amplified. This makes a backspinning ball go higher, which in many cases could make a club go shorter than usual. And a side-spinning ball will soar even further into the bushes. Key takeaway 4. Into the wind, club up and swing softer to reduce spin. Downwind, the ball still gets some lift, but it's reduced. This makes the ball land more shallow, which makes it roll out more. Make sure to land short of the pin on par 3s in heavy wind. Segueing over to air density. Similar to a sauna, when it is a warm climate, the hot air rises, which reduces the amount of air close to the ground. The reduced drag and lift promotes longer shots. On the other hand, cold air sinks, which is why you should keep your ice packs on top of your beers. When it's cold, therefore drag and spin increases. This naturally means shorter shots. So the fifth takeaway of the video is that golf is harder when it's cold. Back to the ground, let's talk about moisture. Wet turf becomes spongy, making the ground absorb energy and reducing distance, and water drains downhill. On sunny days, balls roll better, higher up the slope. If your aim is good, try to aim towards the yellow-tinted grass. Wet greens are slower because, similar to air, water creates even more drag. This makes the surface grippy. This grippiness makes balls resist breaking down the slope, and they also roll shorter. On sloped greens, water also collects at the bottom, making them extra grippy there too. Be aware of changing conditions. Moving from a green out in the sun to one in the shade can have a notable impact on roll. The greens on the back nine may also feel a bit faster than the greens on the front nine if you teed off at 8 a.m. And now we have reached addressing the actual golf swing. The game of golf is really all about timing the club face orientation when the swing is passing through the ball. As we all know, this is easier said than done. Blue arrow represents the swing path and green represents the club face. On a perfect square strike, the spin axis becomes parallel to the grooves. Here red is representing how the ball rolls due to friction. Purple is depicting the spin. If the face is open or closed, then obviously the launch direction changes. Controlling your grip and having a setup routine help in avoiding this. Here the orange arrow represents how the ball could launch. This image highlights that the launch and the face isn't the same, and it has to do with the swing path. If the swing path is as usual but the face isn't, then aside from the aim being off, the spin axis is also tilted. The reason for this is that the ball rolls a bit sideways on the face. Technically there's only one spin axis, but for clarity it's often explained as backspin and side spin. The pink circles indicate the up and side pressure from the Magnus effect. Higher loft adds more backspin, which counteracts the side spin and makes the axis tilt less. This makes more lofted clubs generally more accurate. If the face is open or closed at impact, the ball starts offline, then curves further due to spin. On off-center strikes, the club twists a bit. The face opening or closing only has a mild effect on the launch direction. What is more noteworthy is the gear effect. Friction between the ball and club face when twisting the club creates crazy side spin on the ball. It's called gear effect because the club acts like a gear on the ball, cranking the ball in a way that spins it the other direction, compared to a center strike if the face was opened or closed. Drivers and game improvement irons are designed to counteract off-center strikes a bit, so please use them. This takes us to the sixth key takeaway, and you might have anticipated what it is. It is really, really, really important to hit the center of the face. But the video isn't quite finished yet. Hitting from a sideways tilting slope affects launch direction, and spin too. Remember the part about the spin axis becoming parallel to the grooves? This means that you need to compensate a tiny bit more for high lofted clubs. A 9-iron curves more than a 4-iron from a side slope. In the rough, with a ball sitting up like on a tee, this mechanic can also create intentional draws. Just remember, higher loft increases the effect. Some tee boxes are uneven, so playing from level ground helps consistency. You may tee up to 2 club lengths behind the tee markers. If there's a hazard on one side of the hole, it's often smart to tee up on that same side. Doing so opens up more room to aim safely toward the opposite side of the fairway. If the swing path is diagonal through the ball, the spin axis tilts too. Outside in creates fades, inside out creates draws. Combine these paths with open or closed faces to get slices or hooks. This shows 2 components of every shot, swing path and club face. A straight shot requires both to align perfectly at impact. These images serve to highlight that an outside-in swing with a square face creates similar side spin as an open face with a straight swing would. From above or behind the player, you can see how the club moves through impact. Outside in with a square face produces a fade. With an open face, it produces a slice. Inside out with a square face gives a draw. With a closed face, it becomes a hook. So now you know, shape shots by adjusting either the path or the face, or combine both for crazy ball flights. If path and face align at impact, you're set. Swing your swing. Just remember that golf is a game about consistency. A quick reminder of takeaway 2, golf is hard because of all these factors. Shots will spread, so don't chase narrow gaps or risky plays. Experienced golfers aim safe and choose clubs to avoid hazard by distances, keeping them out of play even on inconsistencies. Wrapping up with all the takeaways on one page, and that's all. Thanks for watching.